Hello, Not Manly here. Welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. We're trying out our new science instruments here. We've got the... I said seismometer, it's a seismic accelerometer. I was close, wasn't I? And that experiment requires more than one measurement to get full science out of there. And so we've brought along Lizzle Kerman, another scientist, to be able to collect these experiments and load them into that Mark I inline cockpit. We also have an experimental storage unit aboard there, so we can carry 2 copies of all these. We've also got our original suite of instruments because we have uncovered 4 more biomes over at the research and development site. At the R&D site, there are 4 buildings that each produce their own science once they're up at level 3. Just getting all of our instruments ready, just like we did last time, and Lizzle Kerman will do the science dance. Oh, let's get out there, let's collect all these. Make sure we can collect all... Oh, come on there, Lizzle. Get back out there and collect them all. Alright. Collect all. Alright, now redo those 3. Come on. There you go. Load up the science before you can go out there and collect it. There you go. Take the data, download the data, take the data. Wonder what the difference is on that atmospheric fluid spectrometer. You gotta download the data. So, after about 28 minutes of the science dance, we end up back at the launch pad. And we've got 1 more collection of science, and along the way we got the original science for those 4 biomes over at the R&D facility. You can even see some of it in the log up on the top left there. There we go, we got our 2 copies of those. There we go, same as before. Take the data, take the data, take the data aboard. And then we just mosey on up to the top of the launch pad for 100% recovery. And we recover over 500 science just for that. Look at that. Just for hardly doing anything. And how are we going to spend that science? Well, to get to composites, I want the structural parts in there, so I had to go back and get advanced construction to be able to get composites. I want that mobile processing lab because it can basically make science for us. Feed it data, feed it scientists, and it makes science. And then we get the probodobodine rovemate, which I will show you a good use for later on. Since we have those drill parts that we got alongside of the negative gravioli detector, we're going to want better solar power, we're going to want thermal radiators to deal with the heat that these things generate. So we're going to get advanced electrics. And there we go. Let's see what else. We got specialized control. This part here, the fly-by-wire hub, that's Valentina's invention. That is basically a pilot for non-pilots, and for probes that aren't fully pilots. It can do the all-important maneuver hold, which we are going to need for more advanced missions. Since we're here, let's get the next set of aircraft parts. We want to start exploring the possibility of getting to orbit, so we're going to need that Sphinx turbofan engine. And along the way, Valentina uncovered some oddball parts that she kind of remembers, but doesn't remember before. There we go. Small circular intake is for intake air, and the Juno basic jet engine, a jet engine? We have the Hades jet engine. What do we want the Juno jet engine for? This must have been buried in some old archive that we never heard of before. Anyway, we're getting ready for our second Gilly mission with 2 of our 3 new science instruments. We can't use the atmosphere spectrometer where there's no atmosphere. So we've got the same suite that we sent Bob up in. We've also got real parachutes. We're going to make sure that Doug Kerman, who we're sending up next, is not going to be at risk. And there he is. Now take a look on that rendezvous section there at that time to relative ascending node. We're waiting for that to close to 1 minute or less. That way we are directly underneath Gilly's orbit and we'll have less of a hard time matching inclination with Gilly. This launch, I had to save and I had to repeat 3, 4, 5 times. I lost count. But at least once I got that there, now I can set my relative inclination to Gilly as close to 0 as I can keep it. That will save me tons of delta V just getting to Gilly, assuming I don't waste it just getting into orbit up here. There we go. trying to fix relative inclination. Once we're in space, we can waste more delta V just lining up. There we go. Oh, there we go. Now we are less than 0.1% degrees inclination relative. As long as we can close our orbit, we should have an easier time getting to Gilly. This also was a pretty steep launch, so not as efficient as I would have liked. But I think just having the inclination is going to save us tons of delta V later on. I run out of fuel right around here, so I end up enabling crossfeed on that decoupler. There we go. So we can just finish closing our orbit. Don't worry, we're sending up a tanker to refuel this craft. And speaking of the tanker, there it is. You notice that this tanker actually has a second service bay attached. One is for the probe that helps control the craft, and another one is for an experiment that we are sending up with Doug. We're sending up a part test up there that is worth several 100,000 funds if we can succeed in doing the part test. So why not send it up there with Doug if we can? Getting that fuel just lined up. We only need a little bit of fuel to deorbit the service craft. There we go. Inside that service bay is a small hardpoint. This is an experimental part right now. C7 has asked us to test this part in suborbital flight above Gilly. This little piece should be a lot less trouble to get up than an entire Gilly lander. Here we go. We will re-disable crossfeed so that we can use that Terrier liquid fuel engine later. Now take a look at this. Our ejection is still about 1.2 kilometers per second, but since we are matched in inclination with Gilly, it is much easier to get an encounter. Look at that. Not having to do any extra course corrections later. Just like before, we start where the estimated burn and the node in match because the Terrier is a much lower thrust engine. There we go. And we do get up on our way. We have to reverse a little bit to fix our rendezvous. Just a little bit more, a little bit more. Look at that. Right there we have an encounter for maybe about 1.3 kilometers per second. And since we're meeting it out at apoapsis, the capture at Gilly is going to be a lot less expensive. Look at that, 244 meters per second. That is about as cheap as we can get. And we have the negative gravity detector aboard. It is biome specific. Just like the atmosphere spectrometer, it can be used in low space, it can be used in high space. We'll see it in high space in just a bit. Look at that. We're in high space and we are still getting biome specific data for that negative gravity detector. That's a very valuable instrument. And again, we are taking 2 copies of those readings to be able to get the full benefit of the science. Look at that. Now between that launch and 2 satellite launches, we got Jagard Kerman here doing some atmosphere analysis for us. We have some temperature contracts in the upper atmosphere, but at the same time we're going to take our atmospheric spectrometer up there for additional science. And we have 2 experimental storage units aboard here. That's because we're not going to send Jagard out in the middle of a flight to go and fetch the data. No, no. We can have one unit copy one data and the other unit copy one piece of data. We're just going to test that right here on the ground. And yep, we can have one keep one and one keep the other. And off we go. Jagard Kerman is not as fearless as Jebediah or Valentina. She's a little nervous about this flight. You'd think after having been stranded in space and recovered, she'd be a little more comfortable with flight, but apparently not. Even so, we're going to guide her safe. There we go. Flaps 2 for easy takeoff, flaps 1 for an easy climb. And no problem, Jagard. Just relax. We're going to get you up to those sites and we're going to bring you back safe. And just like that gravioli detector, we can take 2 atmospheric spectrometer readings and load one into one storage unit and one into the other storage unit. And we repeat this on the way up through our green colored skies that are slowly changing back to purple. That's Scatterer doing its magic with environmental visual enhancements. Look at that, we got 2 copies of everything. Such beautiful cloud work. Calm down, Jagard, we're going to bring you back home safe. I promise you. Now here we are at 14 kilometers up, and we can get upper atmosphere science per biome upper atmosphere science as well. So we're going to have 4 copies of each biome and 2 copies of each set of altitudes. We're going to bring back lots of science on this trip. We've got our thermometer on there. The thermometer isn't going to give us any science, but it is going to help us complete our contract. Look at that. That helps pay for one of the rockets up to Gilly. And we're going to bring her back. We're quite a ways out, but now that we have flags out by the runway, we can just target one of those flags and fly back toward them. No problem. Look at that, Yogurt. See, we're going to bring you back safe. Don't be so nervous. Look at that. We are just outside the ring yet, 97 kilometers. We're going to do a slow descent through these clouds. Again, wiggling left and right, doing gentle S-turns back and forth to try to bleed off speed. We don't want dynamic pressures to get too high, or this craft could be uncontrollable or could fall apart. Back and forth. Now, Yogurt's not exactly enthusiastic about this attempt at landing, so not only is she going to just pass over this for a little bit, this is way too fast. Come on, 85 meters per second. We're not going to do this. But you know what? She is so unimpressed with this particular approach that she's kind of had it with the control tower. Look at this. Got her flaps down, and she is going to go buzz the tower. She's going to make her displeasure known to the folks at the tower. Look at that. Come on, Yogurt, take it easy, eh? But at the last minute, well, we could have collided into the tower there. It's a good thing you pulled up when you did, Yogurt. You can show your displeasure to mission control after you land safe. There we go, get your flaps back out. We want you to land safe, no more shenanigans. Come on. There you go. No problem, Yogurt. Bring that science home safe and bring yourself home safe as well. We don't need you lost here. Went to all that trouble to get you back from space. We don't want to lose you to a simple routine landing. There you go. We're picking up a little bit of speed here because we need it. We lost too much speed on that turn, so we'll accelerate a little bit, then dial it back down. There we go. 60 meters per second. Flaps 3, all ready for landing. Come on, Yogurt, you can do this. How would you become a pilot to get to space if you didn't know how to do a routine landing? Come on. Come on, Yogurt. Just a little more. There you go. Oh! Ah, no, there you go. Touchdown. Great job, Yogurt. Now bring that craft to a halt and get back into the hangar safe. Not only did we complete our temperature atmospheric contract, but we went and gathered a bunch of atmospheric science. 220 science. Look at that. Just for doing something else alongside our contract. But we're going to do more in another episode. Until then, I'm not manly. Fly safe.